Imagine holding something in your hand that's, well, older than the pyramids, older than writing even, and it didn't actually start here on Earth. Today on All Sorts Podcast, we're taking a really fascinating journey back in time. We're exploring ancient artifacts made from something truly special, Meteoritic iron. Just think about that, our ancestors, shaping literal pieces of the cosmos.
That's absolutely right. For this deep dive, we've been looking into archaeological finds, some cutting-edge scientific analysis, and really interesting historical accounts.
And our mission.
It's really to understand why these, fallen stars were so incredibly valuable, and just to appreciate the sheer ingenuity of the people who found them and turned them into something. We're not just looking at, old bits of metal here. We're seeing this amazing link between early humans and the universe.
Okay, so let's picture this. Long before anyone was even thinking about digging iron ore out of the ground or firing up furnaces, these sort of ready-made chunks of metal were just, well, lying around sometimes.
Exactly. And what's really captivating is how different meteoritic iron must have looked and felt.
How so?
Well, think about it. Compared to the usual dull rocks, it would have this metallic shine. Maybe rust, but definitely metallic. And it's heavy stuff. That alone would make it stand out. And crucially, this was way before anyone knew how to smelt iron from the Earth. So these meteorites were this incredibly rare, high-quality source of usable iron, literally falling from the sky.
So it wasn't just, oh, cool, a handy bit of metal, was it? I mean, a rock falling out of the sky. That must have had some serious symbolic weight.
Oh, absolutely. You have to consider the worldview back then. The sky wasn't just empty space. It was often the realm of gods, of powerful forces. So something physically descending from that realm, that wouldn't be seen as just random. It would likely be seen as deeply significant, maybe even sacred. A gift, perhaps.
Or a message.
Or a message, exactly. It immediately gives the material immense symbolic and spiritual value, far beyond just its practical use.
Which brings us neatly to one of the earliest and maybe most amazing examples, these iron beads found in Gertza, Egypt. We're talking, 5,000 years ago? It's almost hard to comprehend.
The Gertza beads, yeah. They were found way back in 1911, and they are astonishing, dated to around 3200 BC, so pre-dynastic Egypt. What's just incredible is the solid proof that they're made from iron meteorites.
Mm-hmm.
Scientists found really high levels of nickel in them.
High nickel. How high?
Anywhere from 5% up to maybe 35%. Now compare that to the iron you typically get from Earth or back then, or even for thousands of years later.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be lucky to get a tiny fraction of a percent of nickel before the 19th century. So that high nickel content, it's basically a fingerprint saying, this came from space.
And they're sure about this. It's not just a good guess based on the nickel.
Oh, no. They've used some pretty sophisticated techniques. There's something called X-ray fluorescence spectrometry, XRF. It lets you analyze the elements without actually harming the artifact. And that confirmed the high nickel and also high cobalt levels. And the ratio of nickel to cobalt. It lines up perfectly with the ratios found in known iron meteorites.
Wow.
And it gets better. They've looked at the microstructure. The tiny internal details using things like scanning electron microscopes and even CT scans. And they could actually see how these beads were made. They were hammered out from thin sheets of the meteorite iron and then carefully rolled into little tubes. Imagine the skill involved.
Hammered and rolled 5,000 years ago. From space metal, that's just...
Yeah, it speaks volumes about their ingenuity. And these weren't just loose beads found scattered around.
No, not at all. They were found strung together as part of a necklace, alongside other really exotic and valuable materials, things like gold, lapis lazuli, carnelian. So their context tells us they were incredibly prized. These beads aren't just ancient artifacts, they're the earliest known examples of any kind of metalworking in Egypt, and the oldest iron objects found anywhere, period.
And given where the material came from, flying through space, you have to wonder if they saw them as maybe representing stars or having some connection to the heavens. That seems very likely. Being buried with gold and gemstones strongly suggests they held deep symbolic meaning, almost certainly tied to that celestial origin.
Okay, let's jump forward a bit in time, but stick with this theme of cosmic metal. We see something similar pop up in Shang Dynasty China, right? Around 1400 BC, with iron axes.
Yes, the Shang Dynasty axes.
Yeah.
Another really compelling piece of the puzzle. Just like the Gertza beads, analysis shows significant nickel content, confirming they're also made from meteoric iron. What's really interesting here is that this find kind of messes with the traditional timeline for when iron metallurgy got going in China.
How so?
It suggests they were using meteoric iron and working it quite skillfully into tools like axes well before the widespread smelting of terrestrial iron ores took hold there.
So again, it's that resourcefulness, seeing this unique material and figuring out how to use it even before they cracked the code for getting iron out of the ground.
Absolutely. It highlights the ingenuity of ancient Chinese craftspeople, recognizing and utilizing a valuable resource, even one that had traveled across the solar system to get there.
And then, of course, there's Tutankhamun's tomb, probably the most famous example, that incredible dagger. It's almost become the poster child for meteoric iron artifacts.
King Tut's dagger, yes. Dated around 1350 BC. It's definitely the star artifact in this story, and for good reason it's been extensively studied. The science is unequivocal. The blade is meteoritic, again, identified by that high nickel content around 11% plus about 0.6% cobalt. Compositionally, it fits perfectly within the known range for iron meteorites. The nickel to cobalt ratio is another dead giveaway.
But the dagger wasn't the only thing in the tomb made from this stuff, was it? Weren't there other items?
You're right. While the dagger gets all the headlines, there was also a bracelet and even part of a headrest found in the tomb that are strongly believed to be made from meteoric iron too. The sheer quality of the dagger's craftsmanship, combined with knowing the blade came from space, it just underlines how incredibly valuable the ancient Egyptians considered this material. Finding it in a pharaoh's tomb clearly links it to power, prestige, maybe even divinity.
And we have to remember, at that specific point in history, iron, especially this kind, was actually rarer and more valuable than gold, wasn't it?
Precisely. Iron was the super precious metal back then. It wasn't for everyday tools yet. Its use was likely restricted to the absolute elite for things like artistic objects, ornamentation, ritual items, perhaps diplomatic gifts.
Gifts? So maybe they didn't even find the meteorite themselves.
That's one theory. Some suggest the dagger might have been a gift from another kingdom, perhaps one further north where meteoric iron might have been known or worked earlier, like Anatolia. It might imply Egypt hadn't fully mastered iron production yet, even if they could work imported material beautifully. Interestingly, there were 19 iron objects found in Tut's tomb in total. And some ancient Egyptian texts, temple inventories and such, actually describe objects made of iron from the sky, or explicitly link iron to the stars.
Wow, so it wasn't just us looking back and saying, oh, it's from space. They knew, or at least strongly associated it with the heavens. And you mentioned Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. Egypt wasn't alone in valuing this space metal then.
Not at all. The dagger found at Alakahoyuk in Turkey is another key piece of evidence. It dates even earlier, maybe around 2500 BC. It was found in a royal tomb there, and analysis confirms it's also made from meteoric iron. It shows this wasn't just an Egyptian phenomenon. This appreciation for sky iron was quite widespread across the ancient Near East.
And were they only making these high-status daggers and jewelry, or did they use it for more mundane things too?
Well, maybe not mundane, but certainly more practical. We found various Bronze Age tools, axes, adzes, maybe chisels in places like Syria, Turkey, and Egypt that are also made from meteoric iron. These weren't just for show, they seem to have been functional tools. Often you can even see the distinctive Widmanstätten patterns in the metal.
Widmanstätten patterns? What are those?
They're these unique interlocking crystalline structures that form inside iron-nickel meteorites as they cool incredibly slowly over a million, even billions of years in space. You can't replicate them on Earth. Seeing those patterns is like finding a cosmic fingerprint. It tells us they recognize this metal had useful properties, maybe it was harder or held an edge differently, even before they figured out smelting regular iron ore.
Okay, so that leads to the big question. Why meteoritic iron? What made it so special apart from falling out of the sky?
Well, the biggest factor, as we've sort of touched on, was the lack of smelting technology for terrestrial iron ores. The actual Iron Age, where people could reliably extract iron from rocks dug out of the ground, didn't really kick off until maybe around 1200 BC, starting perhaps in Anatolia or the Caucasus. Before that, getting iron meant finding these meteorites. They were naturally occurring metallic iron, no complex smelting needed. Just find it, heat it, and start hammering.
So it was accessible in a way if you were lucky enough to find one.
Exactly. It was ready to go, metal in its native state. And as we keep saying, that high nickel content isn't just a marker for us now. It actually changes the properties of the iron, making it different from smelted iron. It was probably harder, maybe more brittle in some ways than later smelted iron, but easier to work than copper for certain applications. Ancient metal workers clearly mastered the techniques needed: hammering, maybe some heating, rolling like with the Goethe beads.
Which kind of sets the stage for the next big leap, doesn't it? The transition to smelting iron from the ground.
It really does. That transition started slowly in the second millennium BC. developing smelting was a massive technological hurdle. You need really high temperatures, controlled conditions to reduce the iron oxides in the ore back into metallic iron. Once cultures cracked that problem, they suddenly had access to vastly more abundant iron from terrestrial ores. They weren't limited by the rare finds of fallen meteorites anymore. But you could argue that those nearly 2 millennia of experience working with the difficult meteoritic iron, learning how it behaved under the hammer, how to shape it, was crucial. It likely provided a foundation of knowledge that helped pave the way for figuring out smelting.
So these incredible objects weren't just cosmic curiosities. They were actually like a stepping stone in our whole technological story.
Exactly right. They represent this amazing, unique period where our direct connection to outer space gave us the very materials that helped push human innovation forward, ultimately shaping civilizations.
So let's try and wrap this up. We've seen ancient societies really all over the ancient world. Egypt, China, Turkey place enormous value on meteoritic iron. They skillfully worked this incredibly rare extraterrestrial material into everything from tools and weapons to precious adornments, long before they figured out how to smelt iron from the earth. These artifacts aren't just old objects. They feel like tangible connections to the cosmos, and they're just an amazing testament to the ingenuity and awareness of our ancestors.
And maybe that leaves us with a thought to ponder. If these ancient peoples recognized and utilized this extraordinary material that literally fell from space, what other resources, what other kinds of knowledge might be hiding in plain sight for us today? What are we potentially overlooking right now?
That's a fantastic question to think about. Before we head back to the everyday, just let that wonder sink in crafting objects from starlight, essentially. If this deep dive into these echoes of ancient space has sparked something in you, please help illuminate our path forward. Go ahead and like this exploration on YouTube, share it with anyone else who loves delving into these mysteries, and definitely subscribe to the All Sorts podcast. We have so many more journeys into the extraordinary waiting for you. Our archive of past deep dives is there for your eager ears. Each one is like its own little universe of discovery. And for sneak peeks behind the cosmic curtain and other updates, you can follow us on X, Instagram, and Threads. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and until our next deep dive, may your own discoveries be truly stellar.